So you've definitely heard the name Starlink, right? It's always in the news, tied to SpaceX, rockets, and this big promise of internet literally beamed from space. But what is it really? I mean, is it just another way to get faster Wi-Fi, or is it something bigger? Well, today we're going to break it all down, how this incredibly ambitious project actually works, and why it might just be a total game changer for the world.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we have to talk about the huge problem Starlink was built to solve. Then we'll look way up at the amazing constellation that is the solution. After that, we'll follow the journey of a single signal, all the way from your dish to space and back. And finally, we'll get into what this all means, the future that this technology is building as we speak.
Okay, so before we get into all the cool stuff like satellites and space lasers, we really have to start right here, on the ground. Because the whole reason Starlink even exists is to solve a massive global problem. A huge chunk of our planet is still living in, well, digital darkness.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. How would your life work without good internet? How would you do your job or learn something new, or even just talk to your family? For billions, and I mean billions, of people, that's not some thought experiment. That's just their everyday reality.
The sheer scale of it is kind of hard to wrap your head around. We're talking more than 3 billion people. That's a population bigger than entire continents, cut off from the global economy, from remote learning, from all the opportunities that so many of us just see as normal. This right here, this is the fundamental problem Starlink was designed to fix.
So how in the world do you solve a problem that big? You can't just run fiber optic cables over every mountain and across every ocean. It's just not physically or financially possible. So Starlink's answer was to stop looking at the ground and start looking.
And this, right here, this is the radical idea. The complete shift in thinking. The whole concept is, forget building the internet from the ground up, piece by painful piece. What if you could just create one giant, seamless blanket of connectivity from space that covers, well, everything and everyone? The way they do it is with what's called a low Earth orbit satellite constellation. Now, that sounds super technical, I know, but it's actually pretty simple. Constellation just means thousands of satellites all working together, like a giant team. And that low Earth orbit part, the LEO, well, that's the secret sauce that makes it all so incredibly fast.
And when we say constellation, we're not talking about a handful of satellites. No way. We're talking about this massive fleet of over 5,000 of them, all flying in this perfectly coordinated swarm around our entire planet, just blanketing us in coverage. It's really incredible. Okay, so we've got this giant web of satellites in space. Amazing. But how does that actually connect to you in your house, or maybe on a boat, or in a cabin in the middle of nowhere? Let's follow the signal.
It's actually a pretty simple trip. Your little dish, they call it a terminal, sends a request for, let's say, a website, straight up to the nearest Starlink satellite flying over your head. That satellite then immediately zaps your request down to a ground station that's hooked into the big global internet. The data you want then flows right back along that same path, and all of this happens in just a tiny fraction of a second.
So you might be thinking, wait, haven't we had satellite internet for ages? Why is this so different? Well, it all comes down to one thing: distance. See, traditional satellites are way out there at about 35,000 kilometers. That's a huge round trip for a signal, and it creates a ton of lag. But Starlink satellites, they are super close, at only about 550 kilometers up. That much shorter trip just demolishes the delay, what engineers call latency, so you get a connection that feels snappy and responsive, not sluggish and frustrating.
So we have this huge global problem, and this amazing high-tech solution. But what does it all really mean for people, for us, on the ground? What actually happens when you flip the on switch for the entire planet? Well, the impact is immediate, and it's for so many different people. It's for that family in a rural area that could never, ever get a decent broadband connection. It's for the small business in a remote town that can suddenly compete on a global scale. It's an absolutely critical tool for first responders when a hurricane or an earthquake knocks out all the other communication lines. And yeah, it's for travelers who want to stay connected no matter where they go. At its core, it's about leveling the playing field for everyone. And that really brings us to the biggest question of all. Starlink is an incredible technology for solving the problems we have today, but its real legacy, that might be in solving problems we haven't even thought of yet. I mean, what happens when you suddenly plugged 3 billion more brilliant minds into the global conversation? What new art, what new science, what new ideas are they going to create? That, to me, is the most exciting part of this entire story, and it's really just getting started.